Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the news studio at the Bishop's House in Fargo, North Dakota. I have returned from Canon Law Studies in Washington, D.C., and now I have access to my proper computer again in a private place to stream from. So now we can start doing this again. I want to thank Ted, if he's out there, for kind of covering the Sunday night slot on the Randos United channel at the time that I was in Washington, D.C. I'm really glad he did that. And I was hoping that somebody would. And I'm back, and maybe he'll tune in tonight and say hi to all you folks. Uh, the Canon Law program that I'm in is a 4 year program. So I just started it in June, and it's June and July in Washington D.C. at Catholic University of America, and I get 6 credits a month. I'm doing these 4 week classes. It's a lot of canon law all at once, and then I'll be taking online classes throughout the year. Otherwise, the Streamyard link should be pinned. So go ahead and come on in. I don't know what you guys want to talk about, but we'll say hi to the people who've showed up here. Spatch is welcoming me back. Thank you. Laura appreciated the music that we have. Um, Mark is yelling like a 7 year old girl, so that's cool. And Tertium Comparationis. Hey, yeah, how you doing? So I just got back to Fargo on Tuesday. Um, yeah, long drive back from Washington D.C. And then I started getting my room set up on Wednesday. I didn't actually get into the office on Friday, um, which was interesting because hardly anybody was there on Friday. Uh, so I was able to just kind of focus on a few other things. Hello, Sandy. Good to see you too. Uh, yeah. Oh, what else is going on? Oh, praise the Lord. Here he is. Adam, you've got your Sunday best on.
Yes, I do indeed. I do indeed. Happy Feast of the Transfiguration.
Same to you. Same to you. Yeah, it's interesting that we didn't have a proper feast day for that until the 11th century.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. Wow.
And you can kind of tell the newer feast days because, for the most part, they have much wordier prayers.
Oh, really?
It's like when you
For the
go
older
back to
one.
those ancient prayers from the old sacramentaries, they're really tight, and I just
Yeah.
don't think they had that kind of level in that kind of level of comprehension of Latin by the 11th century. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. Tended to be loquacious.
yeah. Ah, you want to explain that to her?
I'm not in Ireland. I'm not
Yes.
in Ireland. I'm in Fremont, California. So I can actually be part of the live stream.
Yes, yes, it's nice. It's nice. Do you want to talk about what you're doing in California?
Oh, it's job training. It's nothing really that interesting. But what is interesting is during this time I'm attending mass. I founded a local Catholic church, and I attended the extraordinary form today
Hmm.
up in Oakland, and a family. I just introduced myself to some of the guys who were there. Some of the it was a father and his family, and he said, "Hey, yeah, you want to come along to the traditional mass on Sunday?" And I'm like, "Yeah, great. Well, we'll give you a ride." And it's like, "Wow, that's great." So the it was very nice of them. They live in Fremont, and had a good day. Had a good day over there. I need, I need my hat because my skin is not made for this Mediterranean style weather.
Mediterranean style weather. Yeah, yeah. You're used to Hibernia, right?
Yes.
That's what the Romans named your country. It was the land of constant winter.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's interesting to see how people, there have been times been caught out as being not from here, a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they didn't. Most of the time, they didn't really guess Ireland. I had to, give them a little bit more hints. So
they all thought you were English.
So one person thought I was Scottish, another person thought I was Australian. So one of the cashiers at Target, I got a shop for the week, and I was at the cashier, and I said, oh, how's it going, mate? Like I just did there, and I think for him it was just like a 1-to-1 correlation. He was his mate. He's probably Australian. I had to explain to him, no, I'm from Ireland. He's like, oh, cool, yeah.
So what do you think of American stores?
They're big. They're convenient.
Very big, right? You like them?
I like them. You cannot get a tire in Aldi in Ireland, but you can get a tire in Walmart. I appreciate that. Bit skimpy on the food, However, if I want to eat, the treats that I loved as a child, like Pepper Ridge Farm,
mm-hmm.
They're Milano biscuits. I got them. They're very big. I tried to go into Costco, actually, one of the days, because I knew Costco from when I was a kid. I lived in America when I was from 6 months until 3 years old. So I knew that Costco existed. I knew that's the place I want to go if I want to buy in bulk.
Mm-hmm.
I go walk up to Costco, and they're like, "Sorry, you need a membership." And I'm like, Well, that's me, So we went to a Target or Walmart instead.
Yeah, the Costco thing, the membership thing. Alrighty, I noticed that the big stores is kind of an American thing, so I was wondering what you thought about that. And I'm wondering what you think about this, huh? The Feast of the Transfiguration happens, and then they drop the first transfiguring human light in Hiroshima on the same day.
I don't know.
Yeah.
All I can say is I'm not going to say anything to that. I can't say anything to that.
Yeah, no, I was at two masses today. One of them was the mass that I celebrated, the Latin Mass at noon at Shanley High School. And then it's the celebration of Monsignor Laliberty's 50th anniversary of ordination. And so he preached his own anniversary mass, and he brought that up. And it's sort of like you have two lights that you can follow after. You can follow after the light that flashes and then fades, or you can follow after the light that's eternal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought it that way. And it's interesting to think as well that where those bombs were dropped were on the only major Christian cities in Japan. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and they were Catholic populations mostly, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, anyway, I don't think Truman would have thought of that, but he's not the only one who makes decisions ever. So, hey, Corey. Corey was at the Chino conference and also at the DC conference. So, greetings. Welcome to the live stream. This is sometimes there's more people. Sometimes there's not. Yeah. All righty. Did you hear any?
How was Canon Lawyer School? How was Canon Lawyer School? Give me the Cliff's Notes.
Oh, it's a lot of canon law all at once. So this is one of those things that you look at from the outside and you think, oh yeah, this is just a cookbook. You put the ingredients in and you mix it all together, and then the canon law comes out. And then you get there and it's like, oh, these people all debate each other too, And
it's law. It's real law. This is very old law as well, right? You're dealing with with very old statutes or very old history of those, all of that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's very old, and it's also kind of modern, because we didn't codify the church's law until 1917, and then it was revised in 1983. And I don't think we're going to do a major revision again, at least not in my lifetime.
Really?
Yeah. Well, the 17 code was very, very top down. So, like, every 5 years, the bishops had to write the Vatican asking for the faculties to do their job.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah,
Whoa.
right. And it's like, well, okay, is this guy a bishop or not? You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Paul VI started kind of lightening this stuff up in the 60s, kind of anticipating, because it was January 25th, 1959. Pope John the 23rd announces the Roman Synod. Okay. Announces a revision of the Code of Canon Law. Okay. And the Second Vatican Council. He announced all three of those things at the same time. And kind of through the council, Paul VI started anticipating some of the things that were going to come out in the revised Code of Canon Law. That was one of them, where it's like, no, you just have the faculties to do your job because you're a bishop, not because kind of the model they were operating on is that bishops were middle-level managers in Catholic Incorporated.
Yeah.
Just taking orders from the CEO. And this is one of the things that, when Father Eric says that he's a huge fan of Vatican II, that I really mean is that we've kind of brought the bishops back, and like no, they have proper authority. This is their job. They're all successors to the apostles. They're not just taking orders from the Pope and doing what he says.
Well, when they codified that in 1917, that was a codification would that have necessarily mapped back in time, or was it a kind of?
So I mean, it was done in like 5 years, and they had a small team doing it. A brilliant canonist, but it was kind of the time, right? And we were still kind of in the afterglow of Vatican I, which and some of the more radical ultramontanists, which the popes didn't discourage that. It kind of had the praxis of the time written into it. But also, there's like this. It's like this 5-volume set, and it goes canon by canon. It gives you all of they're called the fontes, the sources of the different canons. And it's called Gaspari's Fontes. So like this 5 volumes, and he just wrote down all of the laws that gave him all of these other laws. So it's not like it was like this ahistorical, drop from the sky, and this is how we're doing things now. It was rooted in the tradition, but it was new.
I'd be curious about how that plays out in terms of, like, in the past, like hardly in 1700, hardly all the bishops had to write a letter to the Pope being like, can I still be a bishop? It was probably more like that was the practice of that was probably more like a letter of, here's how it's doing over here, just wanted to let you know.
if they wrote those letters at all, right?
Yeah. Hey, Corey.
Hello.
You dropped a question here.
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to drop into. I was listening to Canon Law because I know almost nothing about it, and I would love to hear about that too. I know that the only thing that I know is that there's different laws for different rites too, which is interesting.
Yeah, there's the Code of Canon Law for the Eastern churches and the Code of Canon Law for the Latin churches. And this is the funny thing, is that the Code of Canon Law for the Eastern churches is written in Latin, because you couldn't get them to all agree on a language.
Oh man. Well, yeah. What do you have an answer to the question? Laura's sung Morton Lordson. I also have. I love Morton Lordson. I was a choir kid from 2nd grade all the way through college.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, I am not familiar with this one.
I know O Magnum Mysterium. but I only know
Birth of
that from the Massive
Light.
Ages documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that one too.
I-
So it's a neat thing. I realized I was kind of bummed out that I wasn't raised on something akin to a mass once I learned what liturgy actually is and what it does.
Mhm.
And then I was also bummed out that I wasn't raised learning Latin. And then I realized I had an epiphany this week. I kind of was, because I grew up singing different mass pieces in
Mhm.
Latin.
Mhm.
And like I know a teeny tiny bit of Latin and decent pronunciation because of like Morton Lordson and John Rutter and Mozart.
And choirs don't bother around with that dinky classical pronunciation, right? Like they know what sounds good. They know the ecclesial pronunciation of the Latin. That's beauty right there. We're not. I listen, Adam. I don't know about the historical provenance of classical pronunciation, but I just refuse in my heart to believe that Julius Caesar said "Wenny weedy weeky."
Okay, look, I don't know either. At the same time, maybe he did, and that's okay. But at the same
Veni
time,
vidi vici. Now that's the way it's supposed to sound.
yeah, I mean that's exactly how. I mean, look, that's Caesar. Maybe he did say "Weni Weedy Wiki," because it wouldn't have been as hard as "wa," right? It wouldn't have been probably a hard "wa." It would probably been somewhere closer to the "v." But yeah, I think when it comes to that, I prefer the ecclesiastical pronunciation for music pieces, just because you don't want to play around. I'm not sure what Roman music at the time of Caesar even sounded like, but it probably, yeah, it probably didn't sound all that great.
Yeah, yeah, and like all of that Renaissance polyphony that was the way they would have pronounced it. So,
Yeah.
"O Manu Mysterium," is that the one that starts "O Manu Mysterium"? I might have sang that one too, Laura. So,
Yeah, it's longer. It's you can actually, you know what it reminds me of, Father Eric, if you've ever watched this indie movie called Lord of the Rings. It's done by
oh
this
gosh,
small New Zealand
I
director.
yeah,
don't know if you get that
He was the
reference.
guy who did
That's pretty
those really
cringe.
cheesy horror movies in the early '90s, right?
Oh
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Peter
Yeah,
Jackson. Yeah, I've heard of him.
yeah.
Yeah.
They had some cartoons of it. Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
cartoons were.
Yeah, cartoons as well. I got into that mode where I was like, oh, did you know? And then I'm like, of course you do. And I just leaned into it. But what the O Magnum Mysterium reminds me of in terms of how they do it is some of the music they have for Lord of the Rings. Because if you didn't notice, they a lot of the chant in there, it's not just kind of vowels. It's actually Elvish.
Mhm,
So they're
mhm.
singing in Elvish, and the words have meaning. And in that sense, it's actually like chant. But in particularly O Magnum Mysterium, that reminds me of a lot of the stuff coming out of Lord of the Rings. There's stuff being said, but because it's polyphony, it still goes, oh, and then and so yeah. I think I know there's another setting to that. I can send you the one, unless you've seen it, because it's on the Massive Ages, the second episode. It's the ending hymn.
I haven't seen
Hey,
Massive
Andre.
Ages.
Hey,
I have not. Yeah.
I feel wickedly underdressed now. All of you are set up with this.
Well, that's the
That's high
funny thing
standard.
about these webcams, right? It's like we're all beaming right from our houses here. So
well,
why
I
should
saw
you
when
be
Adam was
dressed up?
coming in, and I was like, I have to put on a suit jacket just out of respect. It's Catholicism after all. And I even brushed my teeth.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank
I
you.
appreciate this
Noted.
utterly unnecessary gesture of brushing your teeth. Oh my!
Well, I'm going to go back and spend some time with my wife, but I just wanted to log on and say hi. I'm glad you traveled safe, Father Eric.
Thank you.
Good to meet you, Adam and Andre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glad you came on, Corey.
Thanks. Nice to meet you, Corey.
Yeah, I'll see you around. How do you log off of
God
this?
bless.
Leaf Studio,
There's a little leaf
bottom.
studio at the bottom.
He found it. I was going to kick him if it took too long, but we're going to drag that out. How you doing, Andre?
Good. Just been vibing off the last live stream that we did, and was in Discord, and all of a sudden, both Mark and Adam went, "Oh, Father Eric's about to start. We've got to go." And I'm like, "Oh, when's it on?" And it's like, "Now." And I'm like, "Oh, I might come."
You're certainly invited.
Adam had just been describing to me like what the Latin Mass was, and the way it was prefaced originally was, you stand up a lot, you kneel a lot, and then you sit a lot. And my mind goes,
Mark. That was Mark. He said that.
Yeah, sorry, that was Mark. And I'm like, religion? And then Adam goes, no, let me do like a crib notes for you. And he goes through basically, and he says it in the Latin as well when he doesn't have to. And I'm like, oh, it completely makes sense to me now, like what it is. Not 100%, but like it's procession, it's ritual, it's the hierarchy, and it's the blessing. And each thing's connected to each other. And for someone who had no idea what Mass was, I certainly have a good idea now.
Yeah. It's I mean, there's no substituting for actually showing up, obviously, but
sure that's what Sally Joe said to me. Yeah. She said, you can always show up. And I'm like, well, not knowing what it is, like I don't really want to just show up and be like, I'm here for Mass.
It's hard. It's hard because I went from the Novus Ordo to the Extraordinary form, and so it was a little easier because you knew the major beats that were happening. But that's it. I mean, now at least you have an idea, even just if it's a roadmap, because obviously, when the rubber hits the road, it's like it's going to be, when you're participating, it's going to be different. But
there's a spiritual cadence to it, I think.
Yeah. I mean, you don't sit in the first row. You watch what the people around you are doing, and most of them are there to pray, not to criticize strangers. So, and frankly, at your average Latin Mass parish, there's going to be a ton of kids there. So,
like
the odds of you being more disruptive than the one family on the right row is very, very slim. No, I celebrated it today, and it's just a lot of work for the priest, and I'm happy about that, right? I'm happy to do the work, but I'm like the inside of my cassock is kind of drenched at the end of it because I've got to go and do all this stuff, and I got all these heavy vestments on and chanting, and there's a million things to remember, which isn't really the way it feels with the Novus Ordo. Is just a lot simpler and more streamlined. Andrew, what's up?
Does it feel like more work to remember what to say, or is it more work to for all the efforts done, like the different movements?
It's the movements. It's the movements, especially when you got to coordinate with the altar boys and the musicians and all of that. But there's a lot more genuflecting. There's a lot more kissing the altar. A lot more little gestures you got to throw in there. And on top of that, more prayers that you do in Latin. But the altar, they put these altar cards up there. That's got most of the prayers that you need to know, written down. So you don't have to have it all up here or get it all from the book. The altar cards, especially when they're properly designed, so that the prayers are where you need them in the part of the Mass that you're at. But you know what? It's like that's what I'm ordained for. Like I'm here to do my job, and the people are very grateful. With the current situation of the world to have access to this, and they're quite hearty in showing their gratitude. So that makes it easier. Speaking of sweating into vestments, how are you doing, Andrew? Are you a deacon yet?
No, definitely not.
Not a deacon yet. Come on.
No.
You gotta get your tonsured.
Dude, I have been to confession like once. I do not think I should be a deacon at all.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. You're not old enough to be a deacon, actually.
25 and older. You know?
Really?
23.
Oh, 23.
It's 25 for priesthood, but for the permanent diaconate in the United States, it's 35.
That's if you have a family, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even if you don't have a family, but you don't want to be a priest. There's a few celibate
okay.
permanent deacons out there. They're not all that common, though. Usually, it's gentlemen with a family.
Yeah, because you would just, if you were a celibate deacon, at least keep the door open for maybe ordination. Who knows? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not planning. I'm on the priesthood, anyways.
Yeah. So, are you in school right now, Andrew?
I am on my last day of break. So
Okay, and you're back to school tomorrow.
yeah,
Okay.
it'll be fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm back in school now, but I tell you what, it's a world of difference between seminary and going to school as a priest. Because in seminary, you're living in the fishbowl,
Mm-hmm.
Constantly being evaluated and all of that, and
Yeah.
you've got a horarium that you've got to keep and all of this, and then as when you're a priest, it's like, yeah, class is at 8:30.
Be there or be square.
Yeah. And the parish I was staying at, they would have me say a few masses and hear confessions, that sort of thing. But it's a small parish that's got a big rectory and lots of priests living there, so it's not like it was, not like it was overly intense. So it's kind of like, oh, I'm being treated like an adult now. This is odd.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
What's the sort of study culture like for priesthood? Have you got frats in the theological term?
Yeah, fraternitas. That means fraternity. Yeah, what is study culture like? I mean, so basically everybody at canon law school is there because their bishop is asking them to study canon law.
Yeah.
And so there's not like a ton of positions in canon law, but there's also not a ton of competition because most bishops aren't going to have more canon lawyers than they need. So my class in the 4-year program is I think 16 priests and 1 laywoman. So
Wow.
so there's not a whole lot of cutthroat competition, trying to smack each other down. People are basically just there because they're being asked to do this, and that's just fine. And so it ends up being a pretty relaxed, collaborative environment. I didn't find the classes all that challenging either. I don't know. Maybe that's just grade inflation continuing to be a thing.
It's even in the church. It's even in the church now.
There's at the end of it, there's a 1-hour comprehensive exam, which one of our very brilliant professors said was the most uncomfortable hour of his life. So at least there's that threshold. You sit down, you've got 3 examiners and unannotated code, and you just have to answer the questions. So, because that's what I have to look forward to. So I don't know if does that answer your question, Andre?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I didn't think there'd be frat parties in that style. It's obviously quite a lot smaller. But I mean, is there a class clown in your class? Is there different cliques?
Yeah, I'm the class clown. I'm the class clown. Yeah. But we've got one of my classmates has been a priest for 17 years now, right? we're all just pretty well about business while we're there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we still have fun. I was actually the guy who would be like, "Hey, we're gonna meet at this pub at this time," so people show up, and people were all like, "Hey, Father, thanks for doing that." I'm like, I literally just sent out an email and went to the pub closest to the place that I'm staying. It's just, I don't feel like I did all that much. I just took the initiative.
Yeah, sometimes that's all it takes, though.
Yeah.
Other people aren't going to do it.
Yeah.
They're just expecting others to.
I'll be the guy, and if you don't like where we go, then you just send out an email. I'll probably just show up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta make dinner. So
go make dinner. You're a growing boy, Andrew.
It's been good seeing y'all.
Good to see you
You too.
Hey, Andrew. God bless.
I went to a picnic on Wednesday night, and people were complaining about how hot it was, and it felt really good in comparison to Maryland, which was just very muggy the entirety of July. So the temp in North Dakota this week is delightful, and we got like 3 inches of rain yesterday.
Nice. It's been
That's right. You're
freezing
in North
over here.
Dakota. I am.
What temperature is it in freedom units so I can convert it for you?
No.
Freedom units. Is that what you're calling it now?
51 Fahrenheit at the moment, right here in Melbourne.
51. I don't even know what that is.
And 51 Fahrenheit is 11 Celsius. And it's spring,
it's spring for you guys there, so.
Yeah, spring's supposed to be a bit warmer.
Oh, okay.
But it's not. It's just refusing. It just doesn't want to have any of it.
Yeah, well, that's coming for me soon. It's going to be October before you know it.
Oh no. Already?
Yep, but it's August. August never lasts all that long. And February takes at least 3 months. It's the longest month of the year.
Yeah.
In North Dakota? Oh yeah, longest month of the year, no doubt. I don't care what the calendar says. But we're in a what? We're in a La Nina now, right? Or was it which one are we in? Do you guys know?
I think we're getting an El Nino, apparently.
Yeah. Whichever one that we're in, it makes for a more mild winter in North Dakota. So 2 thumbs up on that. How you doing, Mark?
Good. I think we need some update on Catholic Town, which I didn't know was a thing, and the conference, right? Because that's also sort of important. Just those 2 things sort of come together nicely too. So
yeah. So why do you what do you mean by Catholic Town? Give me your impressions of it.
Yeah, so I mean, there's this whole section of Washington D.C., which, by the way, do not ever drive a car in or near, ever. Just don't even. It's a no. I drove through 6 miles of New York City, and that was a war zone. I mean, it was like holy, and cars doing crazy. And then I got to D.C., and I think I drove 2 miles in D.C., and I was traumatized for life. PTSD now, and no, it's bad. It's bad. DC is way worse than New York. New York City is like a cakewalk comparison. But you get there, and like there's all these Catholic buildings in this one section of the city, and you're walking through these nice, really nice neighborhoods, and there's some new buildings going up, and then there's Catholic University, and it's a big cathedral, and there's a monastery, and there's another monastery, and there's another thing, and then there's a church with a rectory. It was like, wow. And it's all this Catholic-y stuff all in one place. And in New England, we don't have anything like that. There's plenty of Catholic churches, but, there's no clusters of Catholic things, right?
Yeah,
and this is just like all the Catholic things that you could Catholic-y think about. And they're all like in this like block. And it's like, whoa, what is going on here? And I've never seen anything like that. So that was That was pretty cool. But yeah, and then everywhere we went, of course, everybody knew you. That was like, how come everybody knows this guy? They're not just like, normally it's like, oh, Father, because he's got the, the outfit on. But no, they know exactly who you are. That was kind of interesting.
I don't recall meeting anybody who knew who I was. Where was this?
Yeah, at the John Paul II.
Oh yeah, John Paul, who was working at the desk.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, the whole story behind that is that they built the Catholic University of America in the late 19th century there, and lots of people wanted to be near that, so they just started building near that. And I guess that part of DC hadn't been built up yet, so the know-nothingism was kind of on the decline, and so we were actually allowed to build stuff. So if I was going to be a critical theorist about it, I'd say that was when Catholics started becoming white.
Maybe.
Never mind the Irish, right?
Oh no,
Never mind.
Yeah, and then I thought it was interesting the fact that the conference organizers this time were Catholic, Marcus and Joe. So a week ago they had the Christ Community and Renewing Culture Conference, and it's the first one of these conferences that's actually had Catholics on stage. I guess that's a big deal to people. And so, and it's the Catholics, I feel like the underrated skill of Catholics is to actually organize things across long distances. So you'd never hear about it in the media, but from 1972 to 2022, every year, Washington, D.C. would get shut down in January for the March for Life. It was like the largest annual, we'll call it a protest. Right? Largest annual protest. Just absolutely, it's like the locals would get out of town. Everybody would, they'd rent beds out, or they'd figure out how they're just going to accommodate these huge crowds that would swell in every day. And if you, I like the way Richard Rowland told this. I think it was on, was it on Grim Grizz's channel? He said that, I can't remember whose conversation it was, but it said that basically the Catholics shamed the evangelicals and the Baptists in the 1980s into being pro-life.
Right.
Wow.
Very much.
All of that is a very long way of saying that, it's nice to have that Catholic touch at the organization. It's like, oh, we've got the monastery, and you guys could be in the conference room there, and you can go into the garden and do your poetry walk there. Just taking advantage of the infrastructure, having those connections. So, and the talks I thought were very good. They're not recorded, so I didn't take notes, so you're gonna get very hazy recollections as to what was actually said. But I think, Mark, that you would be a fan of what they were talking about. It seemed kind of like they wanted to start really leaning into participation more.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
well, they did. I mean, this conference, right? I'm sort of infamous, I guess, right, for saying that conversation makes everything worse, right? So what did we do? We opened with a song. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, there's your language and your speech and your community and being together. And no one's talking to other person. Like, that's not a conversation at all. But there's plenty
they were church hymns, so we were talking to God, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, sure, I can make all kinds of weird arguments around you're always doing that or whatever. But the point being that there's still speech, but it's not any type, like you wouldn't classify that as conversation. Like nobody would, right? So that was one of the sort of solutions. The other thing I thought that was nice that came out was Michael Martin talking about how he, had these celebrations at his farm. And then he opened them up to everybody. So like 60 people at May Day unexpectedly, right? And people participated. It's like, yes, that's exactly because I think the problem the problem that I was pointing out on the first day was, you guys are talking about these things as though they're a single individual's relationship with something else. That's not community, and that's not culture, right? Culture and community are all about groups of people relating to other groups of people, right? Or other multiple people within the group, right? It's not a how do I fit into X, right? That's a bad way to think about it. It's how do we all fit together in communion, right? Like that's the way to think about it. And then, what do you do to do that? And I was talking to Kira today because I went over to the Orthodox Church today. She wanted me to show up for various good reasons. So, being able to figure out that there's a language that we're using that isn't sufficient to describe what we're talking about. I think is significant, and I kind of like that answer. And the other thing, of course, that stood out for me was Joe describing silence and the importance of silence, and me then pointing out that no, what you're describing is space, and silence plays into that. Like, I thought that was really significant because that's these are things that are missing, right, in the creation of community and culture. Is space to have other people there, because Joe talked about the noise crowding things out, and I was like, wow, this is really good. Like, this is really interesting. Noise is crowding everything out, and you don't have space to be with others, right? It's like, yes, that's what it is. It's not the silence. The silence gives you the discernment to create the space to get the noise. Silence crowds out noise, right? And now all of a sudden you have space, and you can engage at a different layer. And so for me, that was a very rich conference, especially with the poetry memorization technique and that. So we had the music, the poetry memorization, right? We had a little mini, we broke out in estuaries, which I'm still not a fan of. I can just see all the problems so clear to me, but I liked also the point that you made to Paul Vanderklay about the extra hierarchy, right? With the Protestants, they're very, very flat. You've got that sort of that extra hierarchy going. You'd never do an estuary event in a church. In the Catholic tradition, it's too churchy. Like, even he said that. No, we'd never do it here. It's like, wow, why is that? That's so interesting. It's because there's a much deeper hierarchy. There's more vertical causality, if you want to get all nitpicky on it or whatever. Yeah. So that for me, I thought that was very rich. It was a small conference, right? There were like 35 of us there or something.
Something like that, yeah.
So, yeah.
The nice thing about a small conference is that it was small.
Well, we got to talk to pretty much everybody.
You don't have to go for the big, we're going to get 300 people together in a conference room, and we're going to get the biggest names,
Those are the people that want agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. They want a big tribe. It's like, no, I would rather have small groups forming communities and getting together and being the way they're going to be together. Hi, Emma. It's good to see you.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey.
I know, it was just you and Ted last week. I wasn't able to make it.
I know, and I was driving, so that was fun. But
I was in Mackinac City.
That talk, though, oh my goodness. And Ted's like, oh, you gave me an insight. I'm like, no, you gave me the insight. I just added to it.
Oh, bye, Kitty.
She doesn't want to be a cat, like.
Never heard that one before.
My cat is very mad at us for being gone all week. So every so often, she'll refuse to sit on my lap and everything. She doesn't actually want attention. She just wants to walk around the apartment and yell at us for daring to have been gone.
I thought cats didn't care.
This cat cares a lot. She does.
They both care and they don't care.
Every day we get back. Like, every time when we get back from a trip, she pulls this.
They do a Schrodinger thing. They show you how much they don't care, but then they show you the opposite as well. So they'll stride around. They go, "I don't need you," but then they'll go, "No, I need you. I need my food right now, in the middle of the bowl, not on the outside."
Wow. Yeah, that's why I don't have a cat.
Yeah. Same.
I don't believe in having wild animals inside the house.
It's true. It's true. They're barely domesticated.
Yeah.
I'm barely domesticated. To be
But,
fair.
Good match, then.
I
Hey,
just
that
appreciate
was-
how they're a lot lower maintenance than dogs.
Yeah.
yeah, but they'll eat
You know,
you
it's-
if you die in the house, whereas the dog will just stay by you until it dies. So
I wonder how true that actually is. The dog's
I'm
not eating
absolutely
you
certain
part.
that's true.
Well, the cats apparently eat people. There's been recorded
Well,
cases of
yeah.
cats eating
I
their
feel
own
like
faces.
dogs definitely would too, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess your cat has convinced you of this falsehood, but no, good boys
I
don't.
grew up
Good boys
Cat
don't eat their
propaganda.
masters.
with dogs.
Yeah.
I never had a
What's it called? Toxoplasmosis.
Yeah.
Gets inside your head, makes you crazy.
Mhm.
That's right. That's right. They do. that
Apparently,
whole
most
pheromone-
French people have it.
Yeah, well, that explains it.
That
So, I mean,
explains
I
the
don't know.
French.
Yeah.
Because
That explains the
in
French.
in addition to cats, it also passes through undercooked meat,
Oh.
There we go.
raw or undercooked meat.
Yeah.
Apparently,
somehow
it
I
can
don't
make
think
you a
that would
bad driver and
ameliorate the
also
French.
make men more aggressive.
Hmm.
Mark, I'm looking at you.
I know, really. Except I'm a really good driver, so.
Well, I mean, you were streaming on Discord on your phone whilst driving, so I sort of don't believe that.
I do that all the time, and I don't get into accidents. I must be a really good driver. Confirm.
That we see.
Well, you'd see the accident, believe me. Corey
Yeah.
claims Priam's dogs ate him after he died, so in the Iliad.
Yeah,
so
I think that's the
pretty
exception
definitive
that-
right there.
I think that
In
exception
the-
proves the rule. That's like they bothered to tell us that the dogs ate them.
It depends on the dog, though. Like you got wild war dogs. Like who knows what's going to happen?
German
Yeah, but-
Shepherd,
Yeah.
probably.
I don't
Jack-
know.
Jack
no,
Russell,
I'm
probably
I'm
not.
not accepting this dog slander. Okay, man's best friend would not do this, except if you prod them towards it. And basically, the rule is cats eat you and would probably watch you die and do nothing. Dogs go down to go.
What,
They go down.
what
to
could
the
they
mat.
do, though,
They go
Adam?
down
What
to
is
the
a
mat.
cat going to do to stop you from
The
dying?
dog is my top guy. All right.
I mean, I'm with Adam.
It's
on
not
this one.
cats' fault. They weigh a max of like 20 pounds as a species.
Yeah, but they got the claws. They have the claws. They can go in for the kill.
There's an old
True.
saying, never corner a cat.
Right. There you go.
They
I-
go crazy. Like, no.
I haven't been able
They
to
can-
so far.
Corey's
Yeah.
got a point there in the comments, Father Eric. That's I like that point he made. Yeah.
If you don't have wild war dogs, you really have dogs. I mean, I usually make the whole real dog thing a matter of size, right? So,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
if your dog is the size of a burrito from Chipotle, it's not really a dog.
Aw.
It's a glorified hamster.
It's a glorified hamburger.
Aw.
Yeah.
So, what's the
Yeah.
smallest a real dog can be?
A chihuahua?
No, real
Jack
dog.
Russell.
If you got a real dog that's
Oh, real dog.
is about that big,
Yeah, they
Yeah,
gotta be.
I like
they gotta
that.
be
Shepherd or
35, 40
terrier.
pounds.
yeah.
Kelpie.
Yeah.
I have no idea how much dogs weigh, so I'm just going to go with whatever Mark says.
So, is a
35 to
corgi
40
a real
pounds.
dog?
No,
The legs
No,
are
no,
too
no.
short. Legs are too
yeah,
short.
definitely not.
But do you know why their legs are too short? It's so they could do their job.
Which is,
Herding
Well-
cattle, they're short so the cows can't kick them. The kicks go over them.
I guess, if I ever saw a corgi actually herding cattle, or a dachshund actually going into the ground and digging up moles, I would respect them.
Okay, fair enough.
I
Yeah,
think with
that-
that
You
end,
take
like,
them away from what they're supposed to be and just pamper them because you're not having kids.
And here we see the real problem with the dogs.
Yeah, there's no such
That's
thing.
Hang on. That only explodes with cats.
No, it's worse with cats for sure.
Yeah, it is worse with cats.
But
Yeah.
I got a story about a dog. I got a story about my first dog, Fudge. He was a Jack Russell Dachshund crossbreed. And this is just to go to show, like, we do pamper the dogs. We are. I don't know what dogs will look. You know the way you ever see those pictures of what dogs look like 100 years ago versus what they look like today? Well, I don't know.
Right.
Well, okay. Well, like, if you look at a Jack Russell, for instance, you can see they're kind of more muscly and German Shepherds, for instance, don't have the like horribly shaped back legs, so that it gives them back problems now. Yeah, I don't know how much that gets worse in the next 100 years. But what I will say is that Fudge, who was Jack Russell Dachshund crossbreed, when there was a rat in a pile of wood outside my back garden, and he just like it was like, his genetics were kicking in. There you go. Right, exactly. Yeah, no, exactly.
Right.
And he got the rat. He got the rat, and he looked so proud as he stood over the little rat. He eventually got the rat. Like he's there all day, and he just looked so proud. And I'm like, that is a happy dog, right? That is a dog that is fulfilling his purpose. And it's like, in 100 years, is that going to happen? I don't know what monstrosities we will be created on account of dogs basically being not domesticated but kept as kind of like children or
They'll grow egos.
Yeah.
They'll start being self-referential after 100 years. Get into irony.
Yes. Good example of that is the pug.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're already there.
That's the first dog I looked at and thought of a burrito from Chipotle.
If a burrito from Chipotle looked like that, I wouldn't eat at Chipotle.
I just mean the dimensions of it, It's about the size of
Mini
a nice
pugs.
Chipotle
Yeah.
burrito.
Yeah, they aren't dogs, that's for sure.
Yeah, the pugs are brachiocephalic. So what that means, like, when dogs do the thing with their ears when they're confused, so they can get more vision to the humans to take in more visual information when they can't work out what's going on. So they're getting more visual cues. And the pug being brachiocephalic, because its nose is so short, can't do that. So it's constantly got its bug eyes just going like that. And if it doesn't understand, it just goes and just waits for more things to come in. And it's just always going to have that dumb look on its face.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it at all.
Yeah. How did we get onto dogs?
Cats versus dogs, I think.
Somebody's cat walked across the screen. That's what happens.
Andres.
My cat. Yeah, I picked up my cat and then I ran away.
Yeah.
And now she's sitting behind the laptop again, just huddled.
Probably because there's warm air blowing up from the back of it.
Yeah, she does do that. She finds little spots.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Bye, Corey. Sorry I didn't answer your question about sophiology, but just wait till you're older.
What was his question about sophiology? I still don't understand the sophiology stuff.
Yeah. Should young Catholics look into it, or is that an avoid until you're old enough one?
Yeah, I don't.
What defines a
I'm
young
skeptical.
Catholic?
I'm skeptical about this whole sophiology thing from the self-professed Christian anarchists. It's like, we've already got some interesting framing happening there.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's much ado about nothing, and yeah. You should just pray the rosary and go to church and not worry about it.
That's very correct.
Corey is a neophyte, Catholic, confirmed this year. So you can go ahead and claim the title of being a young Catholic there.
Corey's awesome too, by the way. I can confirm this in person. So yes,
great.
Corey,
His
Smart.
his talk about Out of the Silent Planet, or whichever one. I guess they did Paralandra with Ted was fantastic.
yeah. And then what? Laura, Corey, and I had coffee after Sunday morning mass in DC last weekend, and Mark watched us drink it. Yeah,
I was the loyal dog of the group.
yeah. I don't really know what this is, Pizzati, so I'm not gonna wade into it too much. It's some Russian thing, as far as I can tell.
For me, I'm just going to speak for me here. It probably goes on the heresy shelf, just just out there.
I tell you what, like Michael Martin, he said a lot of things that I really loved, a lot of things that I really just wanted to dive right into, but he was super sloppy with theological language. And like there was one thing where I was like, Nate, is this actually like what you guys believe? And he's like, no, I wouldn't put it that way. I'm like, okay, thank you, Nate. That's I was much calmer and happier after Nate said, yeah, I would not have said it that way. That was not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people are not very precise.
And I think Mr. Martin would pride himself in not being precise, frankly.
Yeah.
And that's why he is a literature professor and a small farmer rather than a priest.
Right.
You can get away with not being. So
lot
yeah,
more.
yeah. I know that Anselman doesn't like it. That he just thinks it's heresy and needs to be gotten rid of. So
Anselman has a lot of very strong opinions.
he does have
About
very
a lot
strong
of
opinions,
things.
but he is consistent. And he's consistently
Yeah.
consistent. So
And he's
So-
And that is
convicted.
admirable.
He
Yeah.
believes
he's
what he
convincing.
believes.
so it at least gives you something to navigate against, right?
That is correct.
Oh,
Orientation.
Doesn't mean you have to agree with everything that he says, but that navigation can be very useful.
Yeah. Hi, Chad.
Chad has entered the chat. Hello.
Hello.
Said that right as I was taking a sip of my scotch there. About the timing.
Nice.
You enticed him.
No, I thought the other thing about the conference was of course running into not only Michael Martin. I love some of his stuff. I love some of the stuff he says, but also meeting Nate finally, Nate Heil. So that was nice. And then I don't know about you, Father Eric, but if Nate's report that the lunch we had with him was his leftovers, then I am clearly not worthy to eat his non-leftover food. Like I just.
Yeah.
There is
Me,
misunderstanding.
Mark, and Joseph had lunch at Nate's Airbnb, and he had a lot of food. I went back for seconds, and I don't think he minded that.
Babe.
Yeah,
Your
but
cat
that was
meowing at you, Emma.
Yeah, she
Do I
is.
need to mute you?
yeah, I went
Maybe.
to mute her.
Muted.
But
I don't
that's-
want to hear no stinking cats on my stream.
Those leftovers were pretty yummy, though. I mean, that was some really delicious food.
Yeah, I think Nate knows his way around the kitchen. That's for sure. And it was nice to meet Joseph in person too.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah,
Instead of
no, it
just
was,
a
it was a wonderful
picture on
wonderful visit.
Discord. Yeah, it's too bad that whole Sabbath dinner didn't work out.
Yeah, but we got lucky because we had to go get Liz, and her plane got sent to the wrong place. And it was so
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah, we went to go pick up Laura from Reagan Airport, and this huge storm rolled into DC, and her plane got redirected to Virginia.
Oh my goodness.
And so at that
Wow.
point, Mark and I are like, okay, we just need to go get supper.
And then we got back just in time to.
Just as she had gotten off the plane and had gotten out of that, it was just, oh man.
It was wild.
Like I've been delayed in airports, and I've had to like circle the airport for a while, but I've never had to land at another airport, mostly because there wouldn't be that many options around here. But I guess they probably did it to save fuel.
Oh.
That's the only reason I can think to do that, because you're not making the customers happy when you end up in Richmond versus Washington, D.C. But
It's
you
100
will,
miles.
when you land, turn the engines off. Fuel's expensive. So,
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, plus I don't know how circular they could have flown that plane because those storms were kind of all over the place at the time.
Hmm.
And that's what they were avoiding were the storms more than anything.
is your cat still meowing, Emma?
She's settling down now, I think. She'll probably wait another like 20 minutes and then start up again for a minute. Or maybe I'll get lucky and Colin will finish his thing and come out. And that's what she's really yelling about. Because she doesn't want me to pet her. She wants Colin to pet her.
Is Colin better at petting?
Uh-oh.
I don't know. It's the funniest thing. Because this cat was originally his mother's cat. Or really originally his sister's cat. And she would not pay any attention to him for 10 years. Then his mom gave her to me. And she and I had a year together before Colin and I got married because I was living on my own. So it was just me and my cat, and he was out in Arizona. Then he moves in with us afterwards, and she is all of a sudden like obsessed with him. Known him for 10 years, lives with me for a year. Now he's like the best person. He's her favorite person. He's the best guy she's ever met. It's the weirdest thing, and it doesn't make any sense.
Cat logic. Okay.
Yeah, cat logic is no
We
logic.
are not ruled by logic, reason, and rationality. Although, if you were, you'd be more like Ted. How you doing, Ted? It's good to see you.
Hey, Ted.
I try to be ruled by like reason, like St. Thomas Aquinas was, not the sort of nonsense rationality that people are spewing these days.
Final cause? I think Tommy,
Yeah, you know.
I think our boy Tommy was a final cause guy. So
Oh, he was huge on Final Cause. He had levels of Final Cause that we could only aspire to.
This is so true.
Is
Wait,
that
I
why
think
he
we-
levitated?
which is the we here? Hold on.
I don't know, Mark. Have you come up with an argument from God's existence based on Final Cause?
I bet I could.
Okay.
I haven't really thought about it because that's not my wheelhouse, but I think I could. I think I could do that. I think I
Yeah.
could.
Well, he took final causality as an axiom for that argument.
Yeah.
I could only
Wow.
aspire to having
Oh,
final
yeah.
causality as an axiom of my mental furniture.
No, the more interesting question is, can you use the single axiom of being is good and derive everything else? And I think you actually can, but I hesitate to think about how hard that would be.
Being is good. It would be good to have a sofa. So I'll have a sofa and it'll be into being. There's the sofa. And you just do that for everything else.
No.
Now you have everything.
So, Mark, I was just listening to this, and Father Eric, I was listening to a Thomistic Institute lecture on this stuff, and the Dominican was saying that when like the Thomists say that being is good, they don't mean like a quality of being is good, but that being and good are actually interchangeable terms. Like
Yeah.
Right.
which
Right.
he was like, it took me. He said it took me 5 years, like 5 or 10 years, to finally understand what was going on, and it was actually this like profound process of healing to understand what was going on there. And then the lecture was basically on happiness, and his whole point is that you can only be happy if you are pursuing your final end. Like your final cause is and happiness are for a person, right? For a personal being, they're completely interrelated. And so there's all sorts
like
of
the
cool
dog, like the dog and the rat that Adam was talking about earlier, right? It's not
Yeah.
just people, right? It's being.
Well, one of the things there's some really interesting things he was talking about, like St. Thomas brings up, like what is it, virtual causes, Father, where it's like if you're driving, say you're driving to work, like the final cause of that drive is to get to work.
Mhm.
But like you don't have to be like consciously thinking about the fact that you're trying to get to work. Like you're on the ride with that cause, And so this notion of pursuing God is like union with God as your final cause doesn't actually mean that you're, say, consciously aware of pursuing God all the time, because it can become the thing that orients all of your actions, whether or not you're conscious of it.
Sounds like you're looking for virtual intention.
Virtual intention. Thank you.
Yeah, because that comes up in sacramental theology, because the minister of the sacrament needs to have at least virtual intention. So you've made the intention to do this thing, and you haven't made an action against it. So it's still operating there.
Isn't like being ordained to that basically?
Yeah, right. Or celebrating any of the sacraments. You at least have to have some level of intention of doing this. So if I get distracted when I'm celebrating Mass, of course it never happens, but let's just imagine such a thing could happen, right? As long as I say the words, no matter what is going on here, because I had that intention to celebrate Mass, the Mass still happens, right? And there's some, most of the sacraments you need to have at least virtual intention to receive, but not anointing of the sick, because you can get that one while you're unconscious. And so even just a habitual intention is enough. But yeah, you can apply that to the way you just live your life, right? And it's like you're disassembling and reassembling carburetors, because that's your job. You're a hobby car person, let's say. You can do that for God, even if you're not explicitly thinking about God, while you're got all the little parts being put together.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you can do it more explicitly for God by helping out a friend stuck in a tight spot.
Yeah. It becomes
I don't know
easier
how that's
to
different. How's virtual intention different from just intention? Because just like.
Yeah, so an actual intention is at the moment that you're performing an action, you know exactly what you're doing, and let's say it's got your full attention. Whereas the virtual intention is you made a decision to do this, but when you actually get into it, your mind might be distracted on something else, but you still can perform the action. Now, maybe, Mark, you've never been distracted in your life.
Never. But that's a post hoc description, like propaganda.
Could that describe like muscle memory in a way? Because you have an intention, and the muscle memory takes over.
Right.
You're not consciously moving every single muscle.
Yeah, it could describe a lot of things in hindsight. I'm not sure. It's useful anywhere else.
well,
I think the categories were mostly designed for that after the fact investigation.
Yeah.
So,
that's fair, but that's what we're missing, that distinction about time. And I think I like Bazzini's comment there about the top of the hierarchy, but I think it's slightly misguided, right? Idolatry is a compression or a flattening of the world, right? It's you're taking a symbol, right, or an icon, and you're compressing it. You're compressing what's above it into it. I think that's the problem, and like a lot of people kind of get around. We were talking about this earlier, right? With the difference between, say, the Catholic Church idea of church and the Protestant idea of church. There's a taller, a more vertical hierarchy on the Catholic side and the Orthodox side, and that actually matters because there's more layers to participate at, and that affords more layers and more levels of participation for more people. But it also affords an individual person different ways to fractally participate in the same thing. And so those two things combined actually make a big difference, right? That's the combinatorial explosion of affordance, right? Which is a good thing. Like there's many more affordances when you have more vertical causality. And that I think is actually really important. And this idea of squishing things, it's not just the top of the hierarchy in a flat hierarchy where you've got a king and then the subjects, right? Like, you need the nobleman, you need the merchant, right? And then you need the subjects who are, we'll say, under the king, and the subjects who are outside of the kingdom. Like you need that fullness of the hierarchy where there's a lot of layers there, and you see that actually in the Republic in Book 7, at least in the first half, where they talk about because it's forcing the philosophers away from from goodness. There's nothing to do with the cave. Forcing the philosophers away from goodness, even though it's not best for them, right? But it's best for the people at the bottom of the city, at the various layers of the city. You get Glaucon and Socrates force them to go down, because they're the creators of the city, by the way, right? They force them to go down to the city to see the things that the people who are standing at that level and looking across can't see, because they've never been higher. They don't have the contrast. So, all those concepts about, we'll say, and the format of the Republic too talks about that, right? Starts out with a very flat hierarchy, and each city they expand the hierarchy. And they do it in every book, in the individual book. They start out with a very simple metaphor, and then they keep expanding the metaphor to meet the needs of talking about whatever they're talking about. I mean, primarily justice, but also things like goodness and true and things like that. So having that expansion of the hierarchy super duper important for that reason. Like, it just gives way more affordances to everything.
Well, so we just got finally got a second priest for parish, which is wonderful. Yes, we're thrilled. It's been 3 weeks, I think. I think this is his third Sunday there, and then we've had some seminarians home, so we've been celebrating by having solemn high masses instead of just sung masses, which has been great. And what's one of the things that's really cool when we're there is that you like see these hierarchies. I think typically a solemn high mass is done when there's a bishop there. Like, it's typically like if a bishop is celebrating, he's doing.
Well, that would be a pontifical mass once a bishop shows up.
Oh, okay.
That gets even more hierarchy in there.
Okay, great. But then you've got the priest who's celebrating, and then the priest who's assisting him, and then the deacons, and so you see
the priest, the deacon, and the subdeacon. Yep.
And the subdeacon. Yep. And then you've got the altar servers who are laity, and so there's this really wonderful thing if you just kind of get it all laid out there in front of you as you're there, and you don't even have to know what's going on to see it. I mean, right?
Because I mean, even the architecture. Hopefully, you've got steps leading up to the altar.
Yep.
So the priest is always on the top step, and then the deacon's always on the middle step, and then the subdeacon's always on the bottom step. And it's like they'll move in that formation. Or the deacon's always on the right, and the subdeacon's always on the left. They all genuflect together. It's just embodying all of that.
And then at the consecration, when the subdeacon like has his face covered during the consecration,
he's got the paten. So the metal plate on which the host rests, and at the offertory that goes off to the side. The deacon's got this veil on. He holds the subdeacon. And then you got to be there for a while with this paten in front of your face, and they tell you to put your hand underneath your elbow to help support it. And then you're just kneeling there for like 15 minutes, which is, yep, here we are, being the subdeacon today.
Yeah. It's cool. It's been a really wonderful experience, and great on the Feast of the Transfiguration too, which is lovely.
Oh yeah.
What did you learn in the liturgy? Because that liturgy that I did in the Orthodox Church today, man, that homily in particular was like, whoa. Everything they did was stuff I hadn't seen. I'm like, wait a minute, we're out of time order, we're out of everything order. They didn't go around the church with the incense. I'm like, what's going on here? They always go around the church with the incense in this place.
Nope. Oh,
yeah.
It was a transfiguration for them as well.
Oh yeah,
I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. It well, I mean, the thing is that, like, with the traditional mat, you're basically just adding stuff on. If you're going to change things, you're basically just adding stuff on. And so, no, for today, it was real, like, the propers were different. There wasn't anything, we didn't do any processions or anything. But, we're in the middle of ordinary time, and so everything's green, and then we show up and everyone's vested in white and gold. And so, I don't know. It's just like, you just see these different emphases in it. And the homily was really interesting. I mean, one of the things that you think, well, of course I should have seen that a long time ago, but you have the Transfiguration, and then it's immediately preceding the Passion temporally, in which our Lord is disfigured. So he's transfigured, and then immediately after that he's disfigured, and just meditating on that. And it's such an incredible. It's a recapitulation of Sinai, obviously, and you've got the law and the prophets there testifying to the Son, and then you have the founders of the church there, right? The apostles Peter, James, and John, who I also didn't realize they're the only ones that were there for the resurrection of Jairus, his daughter. So and then they're also the three that are brought with Christ at the Garden of, further in the Garden of Gethsemane. And so, in his suffering in the garden. And so there's this kind of through line for them in particular of you can see they're being handed something so that they're ready for when our Lord ascends into heaven, to have this sort of inside track, if you will, on what was going on. And as our priest said, the Transfiguration, our Lord not staying there and then going down and suffering, it reiterates that, as he put it, suffering and death are inextricably linked with heavenly glory. You can't have glory as people without in this world without suffering. And so this whole project of trying to extract that glory, or just the peace, just the glory, and say we're not going to have any of that suffering anymore, it just doesn't work. That's just not how reality is constituted. Because if anyone could have done it, our Lord could have done it, and he didn't. And so, yeah. So it's also been we were confirmed last Feast of the Transfiguration. So it's been a year.
Oh, congratulations.
Back in the middle of the church. Yeah. So it's a big day for us.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
So
yeah, we were at my.
Beautiful.
Oh.
So go ahead, Emma.
Oh, we were at my parents' church this Sunday, which is always fun because it is very different from our church, and I like them both. But the homily today, I really liked. It was about he talked about how if you're having a hard time confronting, you could say the passion, confronting the suffering and the hard parts of the world with that peace and serenity, maybe you need to focus more and spend more time encountering our Lord as in the Transfiguration. So go to mass more often, pray more often, go to adoration, things like that.
Yeah, one of our local priests brought this up, that the little mound that the monstrance is actually put on, whether it's called the Tabor, right? And so all adoration is a liturgical reinstantiation of the Transfiguration, which is just that's really cool to me. It's that's what adoration, I don't know, looks like. I don't know how I would say it appropriately, but it's important enough that it's something that should go on all the time. Yeah, well, thank Father Mauricio, not me.
My husband also discovered Let All Mortal Flesh Keep Silent today.
Yeah.
Apparently it was the first time he'd heard that hymn, which I don't know why I'm surprised, but I am.
We sang that as a Christmas song. No, for me it was it was a mind bender to realize it's actually a Eucharistic hymn, not a Christmas carol.
I'm kind of used to it being a Christmas song too, and I think that's just because I've listened to enough religious Christmas albums that sort of just slap it in there.
Well, it's so great. The Protestants are we can't have this whole real presence thing, but we got to get this hymn in somehow. So we'll just make it about the incarnation of the nativity.
But it's so that hymn is actually based on a text from the Divine Liturgy of St. James.
Yep.
Really?
And so
I looked it up
you can
after
totally see all of that old school, at his feet the six-winged seraph, cherubim with sleepless eye, veil their faceless to the presence, as with ceaseless voice they cry, Alleluia, Alleluia, God Most High. It's that sounds very very Byzantine.
It sounds like a Byzantine preface is what it sounds like. Preface and Sanctus, really. Wow, that's wild.
So it is it's a super stinking liturgical hymn.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And were you singing
Really
that in your
cool.
Baptist church?
Us? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
You can't get away from it. Been infiltrated by the Orthodox.
Yeah, well, what's funny is by the time I left, we were also doing the Kyrie in English and the Lord's Prayer and the Agnus Dei in English too. So, and what? Oh, and a Glory Be, and we'd finished every service with a Glory Be. So I don't know where that church was headed in a direction that made it a little bit easier to step off the boat onto the real boat. But anyway, we don't.
Yeah, I went to a wedding yesterday, and there's weddings, right? And I do lots of weddings, but some of these weddings are like they're weddings, And Emma, you know exactly what I'm talking about here, where you
I
got
think so, yeah.
two really Catholic people who have a really Catholic wedding. There's like 5 priests there and all of that.
5.
Yeah.
And I sat down.
Dude,
I
that's
was just
next level.
yeah, and
Well, we had to scramble to find a priest because we don't actually know that many.
yeah.
And the priest at the parish was busy. We got one though.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes. Anyway, I was talking to this guy who had converted from Baptist to being Catholic, and he was talking about how he had like family members who are coming and being like, at least we know that you're saved. Even though you're Catholic now, you had been saved already, so we're not worried about that. And I'm like, that's just a different world right there. Have you bumped into any of that?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I look. Whether or not any Catholics are saved is like a regular point of discussion. So, yeah. I mean, what's interesting is I don't know if you caught this little joke a while back that apparently Richard Rowland made, which was that all the young, restless, and reformed are now old, Anglican, and tired. So there's a whole there's a whole current of sort of my peers, not the generation above me, but of my peers that were like doing this whole, we're going to have this liturgical, traditional Protestantism, and then most of them gave up and became Anglican. And so there's a lot. No, the weird thing, Father Eric, is actually that I spend a lot more time being like concerned at how ecumenical all of my friends feel about this. And I'm like, no. Like, I don't think you understand. Like, I don't believe this just like symbolically, like these are ontological, that these are real differences. Like, I actually believe that, there's like sacramental differences and that apostolic succession matters. And they're just like, oh, we're one big family. It's like, I mean, yes and no.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of Anglican right there.
Yeah, but the generation above me, yeah, I can think of some people that'd be like, oh, you're Catholic now. Like, let me go get some tracts so we can get you back on the right path. So
well, and it's weird, right? Because they play both sides of the saved card. It's like you're saved, but then if you go, now you're not saved. It's like, wait a minute, because once you're saved in those traditions, it's not clear that you have anything further to do. Right, that's when the Calvinism becomes a danger, and it's fascinating because the homily today, the whole thing
Did you
was.
guys hear that?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Is this my kid? Can you hear my kid?
No, there was
Yeah,
just the loudest. Oh, there was just the loudest thunder outside.
There was thunder too. But
Did you hear the voice of the Father in the thunder?
Yeah.
Okay.
The part of the theme about the Transfiguration was, I guess the director of Chosen gets all these letters about, are you gonna add that in to your TV show? And he's like, why? It doesn't, what? You think it would make a difference to the story? And this is where he's like, this is a difference in Orthodoxy to Protestants for sure. Like, we love our Protestant brothers, but right, it's the same sort of thing. It's like saved, like it's done, like you're finished. Like there's no more obligation on yours. You don't have to do anything. You're all set.
Yeah, no, that's just St. Paul said, work out your salvation with fear and trembling, and there you have it.
So what's interesting is I actually just had a conversation with a friend of mine this week where he's one of the ones who's in the Anglican church now, and they did like a 3-week Flannery O'Connor book discussion, which
Oh, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
it is. And so they did Revelation, Parker's Back, and Greenleaf. And oh my goodness! First of all, I went back and reread Parker's Back. I hadn't read it in years, and I was like, "This story."
She didn't want to get married in a church because churches are idolatrous, so they wouldn't get married in front of the church.
The part, I mean, the best part of it, by such a long shot though, is when he shows up. He's got the Byzantine Christ Pantocrator tattooed on his entire back, and he pulls his shirt off, and his like religious wife is like, "Who's that?" He goes, "You don't know who that is?" And she goes, "I've never seen him."
Oh, Flannery O'Connor. She's a riot.
So,
Absolutely.
but the last one was Greenleaf, which I'm going to spoil it if anyone hasn't read it, because it's fine to just read it even when you know exactly what's happening. There's this jealous old woman who has some people who work on her farm that she thinks are just totally beneath her. Like there's all this like class dynamics going on in her stories. They're the Greenleafs. And so the Greenleaf boys, she's convinced are just good for nothings, even though her own children are actually these like undisciplined slackers. And so it ends with the Greenleafs sort of ragged bull getting out and like chewing up some of her gardens. And she goes out there and she's so intent on like making sure they know that they've done wrong and that they have to shoot their bull. She's so excited that she's going to make them shoot their own bull that she goes out there to find it and gets gored by the bull. But the end of it is like really ambiguous, because like it takes up all this interesting imagery of like the appearances of Zeus as a bull in Greek mythology. And there's this like,
Ooh.
she's also said all of her stories are about grace. And so the bull is like her basically being just like, let's say, overtaken by divinity, and it kills her, but like in a redeeming way. And my friend was telling me about the discussion. He said that some of the people there were like upset with the fact that someone like might be saved and then just killed, as though there's like nothing to show for it. And so so what's interesting about this sort of like Baptist notion, sort of our cultural notion here, is that everyone wants a testimony. Like it's almost as though like the point of encountering God is that you might have a testimony. And so being saved in your dying breath is somehow like not worth it. And so we're discussing the Thomistic, the Hillbilly Thomists, which is funny because they're a Dominican friar bluegrass band who named themselves after something that Flannery O'Connor called herself. So it all ties up together, but they've got this a line from a song where it's baptized at 105, not a life well lived, but a life well died. And so this is it's like, right. So what is the point? What is the point? Is the point that we're united to God eternally and what partakers in the divine, in a created share in the divine nature? Or is it that we have some sort of like testimony on this earth to inspire other people with? And I think to me, stories like Greenleaf and people's response to it are really interesting, because they show you exactly what you think the whole goal of this thing is. You know, it's like, yeah, those other things are great, but like, it's better to get gored by a bull and go to heaven than it is to like live a long, ragged life that ends you up in hell. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I have a question that I've been thinking about while you guys have been talking. Kind of personal. Like, I have a couple friends. One is Catholic and one is evangelical. And they both have this misconception, well, to me it is, of that there's other ways to get to heaven besides Jesus. And of course, I'm like, no. But I don't know. One's a new friend and one is an older friend who I discovered this like a couple years ago, and I was surprised by it because she and I are both like Christian, and she goes to the church and stuff, and I'm like, I did not know this about you, and I'm not sure what to do about it. Of course I want to change their mind, but we all know how well that goes. But if a moment comes where we can talk about it, what would your advice be to deal with it in a proper way where I'm not like trying to get them to, how do I plant seeds or something?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think a useful thing to know is what motivates people for their beliefs, because it's not like we're just logic machines processing data. We live in a motivated framework. And I think a lot of people are motivated to that sort of belief because they don't like thinking about, let's take, for example, the entire population of North America prior to the arrival of Christians in 1492. And if you've got an overly narrow conception of God's grace, then you're forced to conclude that all of those people went to hell because they did not hear the gospel. And like, well, maybe you don't want to believe that. Maybe you want to think that God actually has a little more power to be able to save people. So asking questions to see how they came about this belief is usually, it's almost always okay to ask questions, right? Like, how did you get here? How did this end up happening? Just tell me the story. And then sitting there and actually listening and being interested, and not just thinking about how you're going to respond to them is the best way to go about that. And then maybe just articulating the way that you believe, and you might not be able to do that immediately, especially if they tell you something that you've never heard before. Like, oh wow, I've got to go home and think about that. And finally, not trying to reprogram people, because people hate that, trying to be reprogrammed, trying to be saved. And you might just have to tolerate the fact that people don't believe Peter when he says that there is no name under heaven or earth by which men are to be saved. So,
yeah, I appreciate that. It helps. Because I knew the answer wasn't trying to get them to believe the truth. Right.
Right.
You know, I was probably going to fail epically at that.
Right.
My evangelical friend, she's more into the what's the Jewish messianic congregations and stuff, and a little bit of her backstory, without getting personal about who she is or anything, is that she finds it really, really hard to believe that God would not allow Jews to go to heaven without going to Jesus. That's all I know right now, but I could probably ask and get more information and just understand it better. But, I thought, that's, that's a valid concern. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, there's
so
like
when you said a narrow view of God's grace, I'm like, well, maybe I have a narrow view of God's grace, because that what Peter said was like, and I think Paul said it too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, it's all over the New Testament. Jesus being the sole mediator between God and man, and then you get to that crazy mystical stuff where he always has been the sole mediator between the Father and everything else. The way that this would have been resolved by the scholastics is that God is free to give the gift of faith to whomever he wants, and whatever form that gift of faith takes, and to justify them by his grace. And he's never bound by our work as members of the church. So that he saves and he sends his grace out onto whom he wills. So it's ultimately, it's just utterly useless to concern yourself about it.
Yeah.
It's a materialist frame, right? It's what do you mean by no?
Mhm.
It's like, do you know Jesus because you read the Bible? What? Can you know Jesus without reading the Bible? I would argue that you certainly can, right? And that's an easier way to resolve it. Our idea of knowledge is very narrow. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, that means you read this thing. It's like, that's not what knowledge is. Like, you don't read about farming to be a good farmer. That's not. So you're not knowledgeable about farming because you read a book, right? You're not knowledgeable about Jesus because you read the Gospels. That's not how that works. And so, yeah, it may be the only way through, and it may require a type of knowledge, but that may have nothing to do with going to church or reading the Bible. Like, and then now it's not a problem anymore, right? Now the problem goes away.
And the way I think this actually came up in Dante, right? I think it's somewhere in the Paradiso where memory's a little sketchy here, but
I'm pretty sure it's in the sphere of Jupiter, and it's Emperor Trajan.
Yes, that's right. Because
I'm there for you, Father. I'm there for you. If it's Dante, I'm there for you.
Yeah.
I need to reread Dante.
It's basically, yeah. So that wasn't what I was thinking of, but you're right. It's also quite relevant. Basically, Trajan was a just king, and we know nothing about him. He was just kind of mentioned in the Iliad, and God loved him, and brought him into heaven, into the sphere of Jupiter. And Dante doesn't explain how it happened. He explains how the other pagan king got there.
Is it?
Yeah, because I can't remember the name of the other pagan king, but Gregory the Great, Saint Gregory the Great, read his what are the stories?
No, I think it is Trajan. He's resurrected, and he baptized, and then Gregory the Great baptized.
Gregory the Great, he reads this, and he's like, "This was such a great king. It's a shame for him to be lost." So he prays to God, and then the guy gets resurrected for 5 minutes. Gregory the Great preaches the gospel to him. He agrees to it. He gets baptized, and then he dies again. Then bam, straight to heaven.
So based.
That's so cool.
And then I think in one of the story, God says something like, "That was great, but I'm not doing that again."
Wait, where's?
But there was another scene from the Paradiso where Dante's worried about people in India who's never heard of Jesus, and then I can't remember if it's Beatrix or another one of the not Beatrice or one of the other heavenly figures. It's just like, listen, God loves those people more than you do, so chill out and don't worry about it.
I like that.
I mean,
mind your own business.
One of the ways you could construe the entire journey of the Divine Comedy is Dante getting over himself. So,
that is a lens that would have affordances, and you pop another lens on there, you get more to it. So yeah. But that's the problem with great works, is you never get to the bottom of them. But that's also the great thing about great works, is that you never get to the bottom of them.
Yeah, I wouldn't class that in the problem thing, unless your point is to not get over yourself, so that you can feel like you own it. Because if your goal is to own the thing, then yeah, it's a major problem that you can't say, "Hey, here it is." It's just, that damnable word, just.
Hi, Sandy.
Hi, y'all.
How you doing?
I'm just popping in to see what you're all talking about. It's been a day.
We're just talking about Dante and Dante getting over himself.
Yeah, I heard that. I just got possibly blocked from going to northern Quebec because of highways closed by fires, so Dante sounds about right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, we'll see.
What's in northern Quebec that you want to...
That's where my partner died. I've been trying to go. This is the third summer.
Oh, okay.
So, yes. Every time I have plans and I set them according to a friend that was going to go with me, she cancels. Something comes up. So, yeah. So, tell me about Dante.
Ted, there you go.
Hey, Ted.
Man.
You said you were there for me.
Well, I mean, you should just be careful what you ask for on that count. Nate Heil and I are fixing to go through the Divine Comedy together on Grow Country.
Oh,
That would be great.
all of it?
Whose translation are you using?
I think so. He sent me a link today and I haven't checked on which one it goes to. I'm hoping it's Giardi because I've read that one a lot of times. And it's fun because it's in Terza Rima. So, and his footnotes when he takes liberties are hilariously apologetic and also not apologetic. He basically is like, sorry, I'm not sorry, but I just wanted to make the Terza Rima work.
Oh, I might want to check that one out. I
Yes.
like comparing translations.
How many translations are there? Like
Dozens.
Dozens.
Many.
Yeah. I'm very much in the camp of don't get the like highfalutin sort of Wordsworth kind, because everything that I heard about the Italian is that he wasn't highfalutin. Like people come back to him and are like, oh, Dante was this great poet, and so they want to give him this like very like high and like noble language, when really he's just Dorothy Sayers gives this description of him on telling you a story that's a great like if you want to just get sold on the Divine Comedy, Dorothy Sayers' essay and telling you a story is awesome. She's like, because she's saying that she had classed it with like Paradise Lost as this grand, invoking the muses and of man's first deeds and all these things and justifying the ways of God to man. She said, and then I picked up the Divine Comedy. It was actually like this like tired middle-aged businessman came in and sat down across from me at the fire, like slouched down in his chair and started telling me a story. She said that she's completely taken aback by just how he's like good storyteller. He's not. And so what you end up with is, and I credit her with this observation. It's wonderful. She says one of the fascinating things about the Divine Comedy is the way that you get these astonishingly beautiful metaphors, even in the depths of hell, and you get these incredibly like everyday, like vulgar, not in the sense of being crude, but just ordinary metaphors, even in the heights of heaven. So that by the time he's in the highest sphere of heaven, the Empyrean, and he sees the soul of Adam, right, or the father of us all, he describes him the movement, the coruscations of light, as being like the way a rooster in a bag in the market squirms around and makes the burlap sack move around.
Nice.
And so there's this really wonderful sense in which, well, I think it's Sayers says that Dante does not elevate our thoughts; he deepens them. And so the Divine Comedy is very much and is very, because like ultimately it's about him tracing the path from his experience with this young Florentine girl when he was like 11 years old, leading him to the beatific vision, right? And so it's not about being quote unquote like raised above the normal things of life. It's about seeing that thread between the ordinary things of life and the things that are utterly beyond us. So I like Dante a lot. There will be plenty to say. As Father says, you don't get to the bottom of it. There's all sorts of different lenses you can take to it, and it keeps on affording new things. And I think that we have not, as a culture, we've not gotten over Dante by any means. Like once you've read it a couple of times, you start to see these images, very specific Dantean images that are just like haunting our culture. So my favorite one recently was the last movie that I saw in theaters was that Puss in Boots remake, their sequel. Yeah, I don't know if anyone saw this. But
I heard it was actually really good.
I thought
Yeah,
it was great.
is. I put it on this morning, actually.
It was so it ends with first of all the villain he's like a sorcerer. I mean, they just got his sorcery so perfectly. Like he just collects things that let him manipulate the world, and he puts them all in this endless bag that he just like pulls out to destroy things with. I was like, yeah, that's exactly this is. And so they're all going for this generic. It's a star. So it's the generic wishing star, the 9 lives one. Yeah, that's right. And so he ends up at the very end, the villain, he drinks something that turns him into a giant. I don't know. He turns into a giant, and there's this crystal sphere star that looks like basically like ice, like glowing ice. And he gets so big that he breaks through the star, and so he's trapped up to his waist in this like glittering thing. And it's like that's Satan in the bottom of hell. Like it was a perfect match for Satan, and it's his desires that get him there, and his attempt to escape the situation that ensnares him more deeply in it. Oh, it was. I mean, it was
just like Satan's wings keeps hell cold and keeps him frozen there. Where if he stopped trying to escape, he'd be able to get out.
Exactly. And so it was so fun to be watching that movie. And then this is like perfect match of the image of and the whole movie is about Puss coming to terms with the fact that he's going to die. And so it's great that he kind of has gone through he's gone through hell and then comes out on the other side of it. So yeah, it's good stuff.
What other sort of examples do you have, Ted, in, we'll say, recent times that keep us
recent
stuck in
times?
Dante?
Man, I don't spend enough time with recent times. I've probably 4 or 5 or 6 different places where, you know, the beginning of the Divine Comedy is referenced in literary terms. Richard Wilbur, I know, T.S. Eliot on numerous occasions. I mean, the 4 quartets is basically, which that'll be at the conference in November. I'm hoping that Dr. Jim and I will be able to talk through some of that, about how the 4 quartets is basically like the modernist English rewriting of the Divine Comedy. But if you're familiar with Dante and then you read Elliot, it's just like absolutely everywhere.
I mean, that's literally in the footnotes in the Wasteland, right?
Yes.
Like 90% of his footnotes in the Wasteland are just things from the Inferno. The Inferno specifically, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's just in terms of thinking about what's going on there, the 4 quartets ends up with pulling a lot more from the Purgatorio and Paradiso, which actually says a lot theologically and metaphysically speaking about where Elliot was and going.
We could not have been in a happy place when he wrote The Wasteland. I mean, it's like I go back to that one every once in a while, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is just the bottom. This is the bottom. He's hitting bottom here, you know.
It's when nothing coheres anymore, right? Like the whole point. I mean, because he says that at the end, right? You know, I shore up these fragments against my ruin. It's like he can't hold anything together, and I think that's like the fundamental pain of the 20th century is that. Well, is it Auden what is the center does not hold? You know, what is that poem? It's such a great poem. The center does not hold. The falcon cannot hear the falconer's call. In the widening gyre, the center does not hold. I'll look that one up for you. But I mean, like, it's just such a it's such a.
That's Yeats, I think. Second Coming.
Yeats, thank you. Did you say that, Andre, or Adam? Yeah. Anyway,
Adam.
it's definitely Yeats.
Of course, it was Adam.
Yeah, that one is. Anyway, this. I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot because this idea of like how do things hold together, and I think this is like when I was talking with Jess about the book of Job, like, and then reading and thinking about fairy tales. It's like I think this is what's going on is that thing that happens at the end of the book of Job, that thing that happens at the end of fairy tales is this pattern that's you can't see how it could resolve. Does. And it doesn't just resolve, but it resolves intrinsically. It resolves out of all the things that came before it. And so, that is not a matter of theological faith, but it is a matter of faith that that's going to happen. And I think what you see in the Wasteland is someone like all the people who lived through World War I, because God have mercy on them. I can understand why that would have destroyed their ability. Like how could you live through trench warfare and think, yeah, this will all turn out all right in the end. There's that. And so like, you know, even thinking like the Brothers K, it's like, that's the difference between Yvonne and Alyosha is that Yvonne says, frankly, I don't care if it all fits together in the end. There's some things that I just reject. And Alyosha says, no, like I really do believe, just like the fairy tales, that at some point there's going to be something that makes it all fit together. And so I think when I think of the Wasteland, it's like it's T.S. Eliot living at that point where he can't figure out how it's all going to fit together. It's just, you know.
But that's meaning crisis, right? Or that's
is. Yes.
The meaning crisis is one result, one visible result of intimacy crisis. Is that you see this inability to find intelligibility in the world or create intelligibility out of the things of the world. And
for Elliot, he at least intuited the connection between it because one of the sections of the Wasteland is this this young lady who has this meaningless encounter.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah,
it's just heartbreaking to read that.
It is,
right?
I man, yeah, Father, I'm with you on that. That's such a perfect example of that. Well, and then, I mean, but then to take that example, right? That was right at that period when we were divorcing that whole, say, relationship between men and women from its final cause.
Right.
it became an
Because
instrumental
literally
thing.
it's a line. What do they want to get married for if they won't have kids? That's the line from the bar scene.
Yeah. And so then, sorry, Sandy, you were going to speak.
Well, I was just thinking because that strikes me. My partner, that was his reason that he married his second wife. She wanted children. He would not bring children into the world that did not have a father. So I'm thinking, is that a common? Are you saying that broke at some point?
The notion, well, the connection between, say, a man and a woman coming together in physical relations and the notion of that producing offspring, yeah, that totally broke. I mean,
The reasoning too, something that Father Eric was saying there, just when you were going to speak, it made me think of that sense of it's not just producing children, it's that sense of connection to them, that sense
absolutely.
of claiming them as your own, being their father.
And doing the hard work of educating them in the fullest sense of not just teaching them things, but leading them out into the world.
And like, and when I say stuff like this, I think people can, rightly bring up exceptions, but like, so Father Eric would be one of those exceptions, and there might be other people here who it's like, so the notion is not necessarily that like all men are going to become biological fathers, but that all men rightly inhabit the role of fatherhood in some way, right? So with a biological father, it's more obvious. Say with a priest, it's more obvious because they're direct. But it's interesting. Like the universities until the 1800s, mid 1800s, the English universities, those were all the professors were celibate, right? It was like, so what are they doing there? It's like, well, they're also fathers, if you understand it appropriately. And so
they're focusing all of their attention and energy and time on fathering the education or furthering the education of the children, right? And they're only able to do that because they don't have the other distractions. And that's where the celibacy is actually important. Like that's where it comes together with all the other stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like and couples that can't have children, well, someone's got to take the orphans, right? Like there's all these ways in which, right? So that's
together.
that's and it is the fitting together. Like when you lose final cause, you can't make meaning. It's not possible, right? And if you compress time down enough to just the now, you're being mindful or something goofy, right? Where you're only worried about the current moment. Nothing can have intelligibility. There isn't any reason to do anything. And the correct resolution to that, the actual correct resolution is everything. What is it? Everything all at once. Something that
everything everywhere all at once.
Everything everywhere all at once. Thank you, Emma. Yeah, it's a great movie. Actually, I really enjoyed it. I mean,
I really want to see it. I haven't seen it.
Oh, the nihilism donut is so fantastic. It's just like, it's perfect. It's perfect symbology. But the thing is, the multiverse is the solution to that. Unfortunately, it doesn't work, right? But it like if you've compressed time and you're only worrying about the here and now, you have to expand space by creating more dimensions. And had you read Mathieu Peugeot's wonderful book, then you'd know that because the symbolism is right there, right? The language of creation symbolism is right there about this trade-off between space and time.
You know what's weird is I did see a review of that movie, and the scene in which she's being taken to see the nihilism donut or the everything bagel, it's a Catholic altar.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. It's like, welcome to how this is where I get like, I'm like, we don't ever escape from anything. It's all there.
Right.
That's a nicer way to put it than I do when I'm in a pessimistic mood.
Well, yeah, but it's just, we're speaking the same language all the time in some sense. It's just, C.S. Lewis says that like none of the difference between the present age and all the past ages is that we have all the past ages behind us. And so we're not like a man in a train traveling somewhere. Like we have old times with us. And so there's this, like Dante, like the altar in a Catholic church, all these things, like they keep haunting us. And so, but Mark, I like that because I've just been pondering why.
Box, right? Like in the modern sense or the recent sense, it's breaking out of the box. Like, but you can't.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because it has to be meaningful. You have to. I mean, Mark, I'm still working on your intimacy crisis term, but whatever. But like in terms of like being able to relate to it, like for something to have meaning, you have to be able to relate to it. And I mean, that's just like, so if you actually really ever did totally break out of the box, it wouldn't mean anything.
Exactly.
The most breaking out of the box that you can get is a random string of digits. And it's like, I actually can't relate to a random string of digits unless I like tell a story about it or something, or turn it into a song, because there isn't any way to relate to it. And so if I want to tell something that people can relate to, I'm inevitably polling. I can't break the box, really. Tell a story.
Another cat interrupting me.
Criminal.
In with a bang.
But I mean that's basically it though, Chad. Like that's one, well, really two. You listed two forms of intimacy that are required to knit things together to find intelligibility. But there's no impetus for the intimacy if there's no final cause. Why you're knitting things together anyway if the heat death of the universe. Like, duh.
Yeah.
And so
Makes sense
it's like,
to me.
well, yeah, you can't be there.
Which, I mean, I think about that. I remember being in Boy Scouts, being like a 12-year-old Boy Scout and talking with one of the scout dads who taught physics. And I was like, so let me get this straight on the whole entropy thing. And I was like, you're telling me everything's going to run down. And he's like, yeah, that's exactly. Oh my goodness. All the cats. There's so many cats. I mean, it is the internet, so I should expect the cats. But,
Well, but my cat has been blessed by Paul Van der Clay, so she's special.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like,
Ted,
Mother
Ted,
Eric
you
getting
actually
ready to
met-
compete here.
Didn't you actually meet my cat? You met my cat.
I did. I actually met the Valley of the Shadow of Death. Oh, yes.
Well, no, this is the Valley of the Shadow of
Oh,
Death.
that's
This
just
is-
the Shadow of
This
Death.
is Shadow of Death, yes.
And I will tell you, Jacob, that I feared no evil when I was near the Shadow of the Death, the Valley of the Shadow of Death, because she's very sweet.
She is very sweet. Yes. Although she bullies Happy like you wouldn't believe.
That sounds symbolically appropriate. It's a very existential pet situation you have going on there.
She's 8 pounds and Happy is 80 pounds, and she hisses at Happy and Happy shies away.
Look, Jacob, I'm telling you, you're just like, you've got this sort of like, what do they call it? The psychomachia, the like inner battles. It's like, of course, you have 10% of the fear of death can ruin 100% of happiness in most people's lives.
Dang. Yeah. That's how it works, huh?
Oh my goodness.
I haven't seen Valerie in forever. How are you doing, Valerie?
Doing all right. How are you doing?
Good.
Yeah.
And Sally's here, and Bazani's here.
Good night.
Everybody missed you, Father Eric.
Oh.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Night, Ted.
Yeah, I'm really glad that Ted stepped into the breach and kept the Sunday nights alive here. And he's going to need to do so next week because I have a mass with the bishop at 5 p.m. in Wahpeton.
Oh.
And so
Very
there's
cool.
really not any possibility of me doing this next week. And yeah, the
Isn't-
Sundays.
Isn't Mass with the bishop much longer than Mass without a bishop?
It depends on the bishop. So definitely, it's it does usually take longer, but that's usually because you got a bigger crowd and a few more ceremonies involved. So yeah, we'll see if we can make this happen next Sunday.
So hanging around with the bishop makes Mass longer. I guess that's kind of to keep people from following the bishop around all the time or something. No.
Well, usually the size of North Dakota takes care of that. But it's when you've got the bishop there, basically you've got some kind of special thing going on, and that's why you have the bishop there. So usually it's the special thing that makes whatever it is longer and gives you a bigger crowd.
But if it's just the bishop's Sunday mass at the cathedral, it's not that much longer, right?
No, it really would not make any difference, especially in our cathedral, because they would always do incense.
Generally, if you go to services and the mohel, who's the person who does circumcisions, has a circumcision that day, then services are shorter, and it has nothing to do with circumcisions cutting the ceremony. Not a funny joke, not a funny joke. But for this reason, those rabbis who do circumcisions all the time, like they have almost every day they have a circumcision they're doing, are really popular for people to go to services with them, because services like morning services, especially on Mondays and Thursdays, are like 10-15 minutes shorter.
Do they just talk faster?
No, so there are prayers we say on. There are penitential prayers you don't say on happy days, and it's considered a happy day if either the father of a child that's being circumcised, or the person who's doing the circumcision, or a bridegroom, somebody who got married within the past 7 days, or is getting married that day, is in the congregation with you. So yeah, there are rabbis in Los Angeles who, because they're so popular, they do at least one circumcision every day. And so yeah, they're very popular for being in the same services with them, because then you don't have to say Tachanun, which is the penitential prayers.
So you could say they've got skin in the game, hey?
Yes, nobody makes jokes about this at all. It's not a joke people make constantly.
You've never heard that before. Hello, Chad.
Hi. Hi. What are you guys talking about?
Circumcising babies and cutting it short.
And skin in the game, and yeah, and how nobody's ever heard these jokes. They're brand new.
Yeah. They're kind of dull. They don't really cut through like they probably should.
Oh my goodness! Don't make me end this stream early, Chad.
Sorry. Well, I gotta take the brunt of it.
No. It's all good. It's all good.
Were you guys at least talking about something important at one point?
Oh, we were talking about Dante and T.S. Eliot. It was honestly
the Transfiguration and the difference between the Protestants, the Orthodox, and the Catholics. Yeah.
Oh, it's basically the same old.
Same old. Yeah.
Not at all.
Stuff we talk about all the time.
When Bill told me he wanted to talk to Chad, I was like, oh yes, the two people who are like, stop with the stupid theology and do something productive with your life, talking to each other. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah. I've actually, over the last couple of days, been the only thing that's actually kept me from making the announcement that I was going to take a break from the corner was that I had this stupid conversation with Bill coming up.
Oh.
Otherwise, I thought I really was thinking about like just not making the proclamation that I would end it all here, but like that I wanted to like walk away for a little while.
There's good reasons to take a break.
Yeah. The only thing at this point that's really keeping me around here is this stupid Peter Pan thing that I committed to finishing, and this other conversation. But I don't know. I felt like there's something is calling me away. You know?
Every time somebody has said something like that to me, I have always made it a point to say there's nothing wrong with stepping away from this internet community. I think you contribute a lot to it, and that's why I am glad when you have time and it's beneficial for you to be involved. But this is not meant to be something that's permanent. It's not like, it's not good for it to always be something in your life. And I think when we do it well, it's good if we can continue to contribute to this corner as we can. But when we do it well, we do end up like in real life communities that take us away from being as online as we used to be, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jacob's really right. I had to take a 3-month break from Discord, and I was communicating with him during that time. And then I came back, and he was thankful when I joined the stream, and another friend of mine as well. And you really do notice how much different your life can be, just separating from the little groups that you cling on to sometimes too much.
Yeah.
And just take some time for yourself.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, for me, I feel like the whole thing is really a selfish endeavor for me. It feels that way sometimes. It feels like a very self-centered, attention-grabbing game, and like, that's just me. I'm not saying anybody else here. It's just like I know these things about myself, so I notice when I'm starting to drift off into self-centered modes of being, and it's not good for a guy like me.
I mean, I feel some of that too. I can come up with an idea for a YouTube video like every day, and I could dream about how it all would come together, and then I worry about what that would end up doing to me if I put a lot of myself out there. I'm quite certain that if I made all the videos that I really wanted to, I would just make everything worse, myself and everybody who happened to watch them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. I thought about talking to like David and some of the guys about it, and just saying, hey, why don't you guys finish this project and let me I'll just step away for a while. But I don't know if that would be the right thing to do or not. So
I mean,
well, Chad, I mean, your work is appreciated. I hadn't seen your channel in like months, and I looked at like 2 or 3 videos, and they gave me a really big laugh, and it was just like simple editing. So people will always welcome you back, I think.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that. I appreciate that, though. I mean, I'm not worried about that. It's nothing to do with anybody. It's like it's just a matter of like, I don't know. I'm trying to be transparent and thinking out loud with you guys, because I think that's a good thing to do. And it's just something I had a little bit of revelation around it the last couple of days. Just something kind of saying, hey, you know, like, remember those alcoholics you used to always be working with all the time? Remember those guys? Like, you haven't actually gone through the doctor's opinion with anybody in, I don't know, 4 months or something. It might be nice to actually go out and actively turn up the juices on your recovery game a little bit. Hey, that'd be a good idea, right, Chad? I'm like, yeah. And it's hard to play the balancer. You know, like I don't balance things well. You know, and so being a husband and an employee and a recovered alcoholic, and then doing this thing on the internet, which is a lot of fun. This thing will suck a lot of my time, and so I don't know.
So you're saying you're not perfect, Chad? Shocking.
That's a yes. Well, that's a different conversation, but it's about you can't serve two masters. That's what it's about, and there's already enough stuff that goes on in my head and between my ears that is unhealthy, and then serving the wrong master often gets me falling victim to the things that go through my head. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying not to be sick, but yeah.
Yeah, we have limited time, energy, and attention. So
right.
we have to figure out how to meter it out correctly. And on that note, my time, energy, and attention is going to bed. So we'll see you later.
Too. I'm
Take care.
Good night, Frank.
Have a good one. Great to see you guys. And, I think I'm gonna roll off here too. But thanks for letting me drop in.
Yeah.
It's great seeing you, Chad.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Now would be a good time to start wrapping the stream up. I'm 3 yawns in. So
I wanted to note, thank you for saying my YouTube name correctly, because you're the first person who has.
Andre?
Tertium.
Oh, that's you.
Tertium.
Yeah, well,
yes.
I speak. I read Latin, so yeah.
Yeah.
Mark was struggling to read it out. He was going, Turt, can I call you Turt? And he knows it's me. And I'm just like, just say Andre every time I comment. But it was good to hear it said correctly for once.
Yeah.
What's tertium?
Yeah.
It means third.
Third.
Yeah, it's to do with metaphors. I had a list up. It's like the mother is necessity is the mother of invention, is an example.
My difficulty is remembering to call Father Eric, and Father Stephen, because I constantly call one the other.
Yeah. Oops. We're different. We're rather different, actually.
Yeah.
I never knew fathers before.
Alrighty. Well, I'm 4 yawns in, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. So good night.
All right.
And
Good night.
God bless
Good night,
you.
everyone. Good to
God
see you all.
bless. Bye-bye.